I would like to discuss tonight two subjects. One being adventure building for multiple characters, so more than your standard 4 characters in a group, and then large group, DMing large groups. So why don't we first start with DMing large groups. So I have 2 groups that I run. One group I have 6 players, the other group I now have 8 players in that group. And though that can be difficult to DM, not in the sense of controlling it. With experience, I would say you can run a big group. I've seen some other DMs on YouTube that say run from the large groups, don't do it. But I enjoy it, and I have DM'd large groups really since junior high is when I started running large groups where 6 to 8 players in a group. When I started, it was 2 to 4 players. And then once I got a good handle on it, I was able to increase my group. And I actually enjoy that. I enjoy having all my friends and family that do play the game around the table. And so I don't put anybody out of the game if they want to play the game. And we actually just added a new player to our Terran group named Dominique. And he's a former D&D player and is... Now that's his character's name, I should say, is Dominique. And he's come back to Dungeons and Dragons, was excited about the 5e, 5th edition. Just like my players and in my group, in both my groups, they're pretty excited with the game going as is. And I rather enjoy it a lot versus 3.5. And some of the things I can say about running a large group is the biggest thing is that player participation, is making sure that everybody at the table is getting attention. It's easy to do that in combat. So, I mean, if you're running dungeons, it's pretty easy to get all the characters involved with the encounters. Sometimes, in certain situations, there might be narrow hallways or so certain characters might be further in the back or miss out on combat in a certain room. There could be a bog at a door where it's 2 characters fighting maybe 6 at a doorway. So those things kind of happen, and that's part of the game, and hopefully those characters can also support those 2 fighters usually that are up front and support them when they're getting all the action. I try to avoid the going down the hall adventures. Still do things, my dungeons are now crypts and caves, maybe old forts, ruins. I don't have, in a sense, true dungeons. Not like back in the day, advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and maybe in 2nd edition. I've gotten away from, pure dungeon crawls. They're cool. I like looking at them. I think they're neat as a DM, and I love designing maps, or I used to love designing maps, and I still do, just don't have the amount of time to design them the way I used to. And so with the large group, the biggest thing is the role-playing aspect, especially when they're in environments like a city, or in the case where my current group, they finally reached Sunter Hold, this dwarven fort. It really is not a fort, more of a dwarven city in a mountain. And this is the first time they've gone there, and they've known about Sunter Hold since they started this campaign. One of the characters, Garther, is from Sunter Hold and hasn't returned since we started playing this campaign back, I think in 2013 is when we started this group back up. And so it was great that I could kind of give them great descriptions of the place. They had a big dinner with the king, and his council. And it was also important in the sense that, here's this large group. They've been wandering around on Terran, but they don't really have an identity as a group. They're almost like nomads, traveling place to place and looking for adventure. And they don't really have a support system. They did one adventure for the city of Anlin, and then they've been in and out of the city, but they haven't done any other types of quests or anything business related for the city. And they've more or less been supporting some outlying towers that support the city, as well as Binford's Gambling Hall, which happens to be a cleric-ran church, but they gamble. The god is Tribella, which is the god of luck in my world of Hearthron. So they've done a lot for that church, and they have a reputation there, but not one in the city. And even we role played that out when they met the dwarves. And so the biggest thing is, as a DM, when you have 8 players at the table, is make sure that you're going around the table and asking what they want to do. So in a sense, when I got to Sunter Hold, I made sure that I went and talked to each player going around the table, and on also on Skype where we have 2 players playing, and made sure, asking what they wanted to do. Maybe spent 5 to 10 minutes with each player and then moved on. And then we had the big dinner celebration with the king and his council. But that way I gave every character a chance. Some, may not have wanted to do much, clean up, get ready, follow along with the group, which is fine. And others had, they had specific things. For example, Cass wanted to speak with the mage there, which was impressive that he took notes about this necromancer, this dwarven necromancer that was there, and he had the name and everything and was ready to go. So I was really impressed that this group does keep great notes, keeps the DM on his toes. Then the other thing I want to talk about is adventure building, especially for large groups. And even in this sense, with this group, I have to really be on my toes. They're kind of chaotic in the sense I don't know where the players are going to take their characters next. I kind of put carrots in front of them, and if they choose that carrot, then it's great. If they don't, there's another carrot. And so leading up until Saturday, I really thought, I didn't know what the group was going to do. I had planned adventure hooks here in Sunter Hold, a list of them that they could do for the dwarves, as well as, being ready for them to go chase down this Book of the Dead with these clerics and these other mines that are far off to the east. And so I was ready for the group to do that. In fact, that's what I thought they were going to do. So I had a couple of Roman encounters. And what I do with Roman encounters is I pre-plan them before the game. So they might be random encounters, but they're planned random encounters in the sense that I know what day they're going to happen. I know the encounter. I know the purpose of that encounter. It's not pure random in the sense that it's just all of a sudden I'm rolling dice and go, oh, they have an encounter now. No, I already have the encounters planned. And then sometimes those random encounters are so planned where they may lead to another story. And so I always have those set and ready for the group. So that was all set. And then sure enough, they started talking to the king and also the king's scout. And the king actually, the dwarves sold them on one of the adventure hooks to go fight these 2 Cyclops brothers that I have planned here, and as well as they have some barbarians and hellhounds running with them. So that's what they're going to go do. And then sure enough, it sounds like they're going to now stay here for a while and help the dwarves with this orc nation that is forming and going after the head of these orcs, Grimnox. And so, lo and behold, I'm ready for it, but I didn't think they were actually going to do any of these adventures up here. I was really ready for them to go head towards the clerics and go after that adventure. And so the key is with large groups and even regular groups, be ready with encounters, be ready with adventures, even though they may not do that adventure, and don't force them. If they don't go right and they want to go left, let them go left, and just be ready for them to go left. I would say that's the big thing is, just be ready with something next to do. And if they never go back and go right, then you have it for another campaign. If you have the encounter and if they didn't go after the Cyclops, no big deal. I would just I just have it on my computer saved as an adventure, and if I could use it later on and maybe with a different group, I would. And that's how I run through some of my adventures. And then the biggest thing is the challenge rating, and I think this is probably the biggest struggle for younger DMs, and I mean in a sense not young in youth, but DMs that don't have a lot of experience. And the book, I would say, is really good with the CR rating of creatures, where if you have a group of four characters, then you're gonna be fine with whatever encounter they have. I'm sorry, just checking something. And so I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. Work was calling. Anyways, back to the video. So if you have 4 characters in the group, you can trust the CRs in the book, in the monster manual, pretty well. I've done that, and it seems challenging enough for the group. Hopefully you're not going to get the characters killed. And a lot of it is just learning what a group can do. If you have just 4 characters, what's the balance of those 4 characters? How much can they handle in combat? And with larger groups, when you have 8 characters, and even in this group, they have 2 NPCs. They have a wyvern as well as one of the mounts. So it becomes very difficult to go, okay, what is the proper CR? And so what I kind of do as a rule of thumb, if I have this whole big group like this, one, I average out, figure out, okay, what's the average level of the group? And then I usually will take whatever challenge rating creatures that I'm looking at for a specific encounter. So, for example, this one that they're about to fight with the Cyclops, it doesn't matter that my group kind of knows this part, even though they haven't had the encounter yet. So if it was just 4 of them, okay, then I'm going to just, okay, the group can handle like 1 Cyclops. They can go take on that 1 Cyclops, and maybe a couple barbarians, maybe a hellhound, but that's probably pushing it. More likely I just do the Cyclops. But because this group is rather large and very experienced, has a lot of combat behind them, and their average is 7th level characters. So here I'm like, okay, let's do 2 Cyclops for the challenge rating. Let's add a dozen or so barbarians, because I know if they're watching, and they will watch, I'm not going to give them the exact number of how many barbarians or how many hellhounds, but I adjusted those numbers accordingly to how this group has fought in the past. I know what they can handle, what they can't. You want it to be challenging enough for them. For me, I want there to be a risk, somebody could die. with 5e, I do love the system because it's hard to die. I mean, you have three. If somebody goes down, you still have three chances. You have a chance to get that character, and that's what I probably love the most is the character's going down. Now all of a sudden your plan's not perfect for the group, and now that changes the whole aspect of the encounter. It makes it more thrilling, more exciting, and it usually balances out the encounter all of a sudden. If one of the fighters goes down, or heaven forbid, all of a sudden two fighters go down, how does the group react and interact with each other when you have two lead fighters, your meat shields in a sense? If they go down, what do? And that sometimes is some of the most exciting playing, role playing in the game, as well as just the intensity of the game. So I try to balance that out. I might raise the hit points of a certain creature. I might raise the AC 1 or 2 on certain encounters, depending on the group. And then I also make sure, in a sense, with random encounters, you can't have a group of 8 goblins attack, 10, 7 level characters. They'd just run. They would never even face the encounter. So my random encounters for this group, it's rare that they're going to have an encounter, but when they do, it's usually a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big encounter because they're going to, take a look at that group and go, okay, this is what we're running into. And so that's why they're planned encounters. I just don't roll it on a chart and go, and this is, okay, I rolled a d10 and I rolled a 1, so we have an encounter right now. I don't do that in a sense at the table. All of it's planned. I know which night they're going to run into an encounter, or which day, what time of day, what time of night it is, what watch it will occur. And I even, in a sense, have, when maybe sometimes the monsters flee. I don't have a lot of, especially humanoids. You got orcs or goblins or ogres. It gets to a certain point, if they're getting their butts kicked, I do morale in the sense, okay, this might makes sense where, oh, there goes an ogre running, or, some orcs, they see a dozen orcs go down right away, another 6 run off. Or maybe if one gets hurt really bad, he runs on off. And, that's also interesting because sometimes the party, they may give chase and chase down an enemy. And in that sense, sometimes it can cost you. This group, in fact, before we went to 5e, they had an encounter where the NPC, the group got spread out, and they were fighting some ogres and chasing them down, and I believe there's some hill giants as well. Chasing them down, the group got split up, and one of the characters, Rafik, and the NPC, Carlane, the ranger, kind of got off to the right flank by themselves. And sure enough, the ranger goes down and died. And they had to go bring him back, raise them. That's the one thing, is if you do kill a character, at least try to give them the possibility of bringing that character back. If they so choose want to bring him back, it can very well be that they're like, oh, we're going to let this character die. Or even a player may say, oh, you know what, I want to bring in a new character. It's fine, let him die. And if that's the case, then I respect the wishes of that player. But usually my group brings back the characters, and it may cost them, a quest, may cost them a lot of gold, and that hurts. If they're raising raising characters every other adventure, they're not building up quite a big gold stock. So those are kind of my thoughts there on large groups, DMing them as well as running adventures for them. If you're new to DMing, start small. Start with 3-4 players and get that down, and then maybe add a 5th and see how that feels, and then maybe a 6th. 7, 8. I probably wouldn't go higher than 8. You just probably run out of time trying to, get everybody involved in the game. It's one thing if it's some sort of big war and you want more players there and they're all fine for it, sure, go ahead. But I think after 8 players in a group, it becomes tough. Just not for the DM to keep track of everything. And if you're good at keeping track, which I do, I do that for a living, logistics. So I don't have an issue keeping track of stuff and going through where things are at. As a DM, I may forget, oh, I forgot a special ability, or oh, I forgot to cast a spell for this NPC. That happens. That happens with characters even. But the biggest thing is you want to have that enjoyment at the table for all the players. And if a player's not having fun playing and you're running a large group, and then you lose them, and then they're not gonna want to play in a group. And I don't want that to happen. I want everybody to have fun at the table, and can't wait to come back to the next session. And that's the case with Terran Group. They're all excited to play this Saturday morning when we get back together, and they'll go after these 2 Cyclop brothers, and it will be a great time. So tune in Saturday on YouTube and watch, see how they do. And then I will be back on Monday talking about session. My other group, the Ganor Empire, we have a couple weeks off due to the 4th of July holiday that we just had. And then I'm actually going to Montana for a week, taking my daughter for college orientation. But I will run the Monday night evening DM session from my hotel in Billings, Montana. So until next time, get out there and play some D&D. And if you're a DM, get out there and DM. It's a lot of fun. Have a great evening. Bye.